Anything else you wanted to talk about we didn't cover?
Um, yeah, I just mentioned a couple items that I've been working on. 3 bills being drafted right now. I anticipate I'll have a handful more. I don't. We have a 10 bill limit for a long session. I really don't have an interest in um, filing a bill, filing as many as I can, just so I can do it. In fact, one of the bills I'm involved with, I'm not an author of it, but I am involved with and was involved somewhat last year, is a government reduction bill that actually repeals a bunch of laws. People would say to me, "You pass so many laws. Why don't you guys make a law that says for every law we pass, we're going to repeal another one?" And that's hard to do. You never know what you can't. You may be picking and choosing among laws that you might need that you have to repeal. But what you can do is you can scrub the code and look at what might be duplicative, unnecessary, archaic, and get rid of those. There were some laws on the books last year. We got rid of 2,500 lines of code last year. I think it was 30 boards and commissions. One of the bills that I contributed to that was a small business regulation bill for businesses businesses that were closing up and how they advertised. And it was something I dealt with in my legal practice, and I thought it was totally unnecessary. So we were able to get that one repealed. It was the first example of my time in the legislature where I thought, hey, I've been able to apply my real world experience to the legislative process, and now there is a legal change because of that, and that's very gratifying. It's why you do this, to be able to have an impact like that. But just briefly, 3 other items. Very interested in higher education, specifically college debt issues. 1.2 trillion nationwide on college students. I'm working on some legislation that is similar to something that is voluntary that Indiana University already does. But as far as I can tell, other institutions in the state, public and private, don't do it. I won't go into a lot of detail other than to say it's very simple, and it's resulted in an 11% decrease of $33 million in student borrowing in 1 year for IU students. And it may be the sort of thing that I just get together and I file it, and then I go and take it and create a discussion with our higher ed institutions about, get commitments from them, and then we drop it. I don't know, or it may be something that's ripe for legislation. We'll see. I was just on the phone today about a bill I'll be filing that would establish a new class of corporation in Indiana, completely voluntary, a new corporate entity. It wouldn't change anything that's existing, but would further what's called social entrepreneurship, particularly attractive to millennials. This legislation essentially allows for-profit companies to pursue profit, but also to embed a public benefit mission within their articles of incorporation, and requires their board of directors to also pursue that. These corporations exist currently in 27 states and the District of Columbia, and they exist in red states like Utah, Arizona, and South Carolina, and blue states like New York and California, and purple states like Florida and Virginia. So it's something I think that could be helpful to entrepreneurs in Indiana. And finally, I've been for some time taking a look at Indiana's safe haven law, which is a law that allows mothers to who maybe have just given birth, an unintended, unwanted pregnancy, to deliver that child to a safe haven within 30 days of the child's delivery. So this is a mechanism that is intended to be an alternative to abortion and an alternative to abandonment. We read these terrible stories too often in Indiana and elsewhere, but particularly we've read quite a few of them in the past couple of years in Indiana about mothers who they're young and troubled and scared, and they've given birth in a bathroom. They left the child in the toilet. They've deposited the child in the garbage can. There was a case, I think it was last year or the year before, in which a young woman left her child, newborn child, in a shopping bag outside in February. The child froze to death, and the forensic examiner indicated that while the child was slightly premature, there was no reason that the child couldn't have survived. So we have the safe haven law in place to address those situations, and it has worked pretty well. But I've been concerned about why we continue to see what I think is an unacceptable number of child abandonments. So I've been having conversations with experts and others who I've consulted about how we may reasonably expand this law and really get at what I think is a major issue of the existing law, the issue of anonymity. A young woman can take the child to an emergency service provider, no questions asked. So in that sense, there is anonymity. If you look at it from the eyes of this presumably young, scared, possibly teenage mother, the difficulty in actually carrying a child into, say, a hospital, handing that child over, is probably very scary. In fact, I've talked to people who have been in similar situations and have talked about how scary it is. So I have some draft legislation I was just reviewing last night that we're going to try to get at some of those issues, and hopefully we'll save some lives when we do it.
Is just in listening, is 30 days enough? Should that be looked at as
Some
well?
states have as few, I think, as 72 hours. Others, I think, maybe take it to 60, 90 days. I think that's a question worth asking. In my draft right now, I continue to have it at 30 days. I think the language actually says less than 31, so 30 days. You really don't know, of course. I mean, are we going to be able to say a child is 32 days or 29 days? But we have to set some perimeter, because we don't want someone, we don't want, say, a parent to be upset with their 6-month-old because they got sick or something. There's some frustration, and we open a Pandora's box. And this, what we really want are the emergency situations, and that's why we've left it. That's why we really should have a reasonable cap, but also a pretty strict cap, because it shouldn't be an alternative to adoption. It should definitely be an alternative to abortion, but it shouldn't be an alternative to adoption in the sense that someone who is waiting longer, and they have some problems, perhaps going through the parental termination and going through the adoption procedures it's going to be much more beneficial than, say, just dropping the baby off. We really want to focus on those emergencies, and the law should be limited to that. But it's still worth the discussion as to whether that's 30 days, 45 days, 72 hours. I mean, whatever it is.
Okay. Anything else, Casey?
No, I think that's it. It's great to see you again, Stephen.
Yeah, it was very good to see you.
Look forward to staying in touch.
Same here, and we wish you well in November.
Hey, I was telling my wife, as long as I get one vote, I would think that I'll be there for 2 more years, but you never know.
Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.